Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Exposition Table. I'm your second host, Dan, and you'll notice we're missing somebody here. Our first host, Joe. Well, he ain't gonna be with us tonight. He's still recovering from the holidays, so it's just gonna be me. And what am I gonna talk about? Well, being there's only a few franchises that I'm more familiar with than Joe, that he's not as keen on, I'm going to take a shot at one of my personal favorites, one of my personal childhood game franchises. In fact, the first game I ever played was Crash Bandicoot, so this is going to be a very fun one, a very different one. Expect a decent amount of hiccups, expect some weirdness, some quirks. It's gonna be a weird one. I didn't really do a whole lot with the tiers. I'm sure you notice a couple of them right there. Let's go ahead and knock a few of these out right now just to kind of clear them away. This is the never played tier, just games I never got around to, or I don't have any clue what they are. There's a bunch of really weird shit on here. I think one of these versions of Twinsanity is like a mobile version or something, and that's why it's going on here. I'm not really sure why some of this stuff is here. This is just the first tier list I could find that really had everything on it, so... You know, like you see, a lot of that's just kind of mobile guff, so... Let's not let it bother us too much. I am going to address the first kind of significant one that I have not played. Well, first of all, I own Crash of the Titans for DS, but I did not play it. But I do own it. Mind Over Mutant. I did not play that version. What the hell is that? I don't even know. They're just gonna not go over here. I think. Yeah, look at all this mobile game crap. Alright, I think with that we have... Oh my god, there's still stuff on here. Come on. Dude. Alright. I think that covers all the mobile game stuff. Why did you put them on the list? Why didn't you just not? At all? I don't know, I just felt like it. So... Hang on a second. There's an ad. I'm sorry. The ad was in the screen. Alright, so with that, we have established our base. I have not played any of this mobile game crap. And from there, now we can actually do the real tier list. So let's get started with Crash Bandicoot 1 for the PlayStation 1. So I probably could have edited this on my own for the tier list, but I didn't add a separate version of the Insane Trilogy versions of them. If I can figure out how to do that, I might throw them on as a bonus. But we're going to be just mostly talking about the originals. So for the original, Crash 1, I only was able to 100% complete it a couple years ago. Joe and I were actually playing it. Interesting story. We were 100%ing all the Spyro games for a while, and then once we got through the first 4 of them, we started playing A Hero's Tale, and that kind of just wasn't fun for us, so decided to go play my games, because Joe's more the Spyro guy, I'm more the Crash guy. So we 100%ed Crash Bandicoot 1. It was very tough. It was rewarding. It was very tough. I think it's a game with a lot of charm. I've learned to appreciate it a lot more over the years. But it's very rough. It's got a lot of quirks and a lot of things that are just obnoxious about it. The saving, I mean, this is just how it is. The lack of stuff like the slide jumps and all that. Some levels have insane difficulty spikes, like the Road to Nowhere and Fumbling in the Dark. That was a pain in the ass. I still like it. Being my first video game ever, it is going to have some degree of nostalgia bias. I'm going to start off in B. We'll see if it moves. I'm fully okay with moving things up and down the list. But for right now, we're going to put it in B. It's a nice baseline. Going from there, I think it's only natural. Crash 2. I love Crash 2 a lot. I think it's really good. At least, I think the first first 3 or so worlds are really good. I always tend to run out of steam when I'm replaying Crash 2 by, like, the last couple worlds or so. Like, not that they're necessarily bad. Honestly, the 5th warp zone is kind of quick and easy since, like, half of them are the jetpack levels. So they're really not that big of a deal. But they are kind of annoying. I think Crash 2 is the most pure Crash experience out there. It's, you know, naturally the middle child between Crash 1 and 3, so it kind of meets a middle ground between those two games. It has gimmicks, it has a lot of gimmicks, but it doesn't have as many as Crash 3 has. If you like the more naturalistic environments that Crash 1 had, you know, the jungles, this adds in, like, the Arctic, the sewers, they're two very different flavors, Crash 2 and Crash 3, but this is definitely the superior game to Crash 1. I'm gonna put in A, maybe we'll move it up, but we're gonna now go, I'm not even gonna bury the lead here. Crash Bandicoot Warped, S tier, not even a question. I know that a lot of people do not like the minigames, a lot of people do not like all the vehicles. I think they really add to the charm of the game. Maybe it's just kind of how I am, but I think they add a lot of freshness to the game. The jet ski is really fun, the motorcycle is pretty fun, and the original, of course. The Insane Trilogy kind of botches the controls in a lot of those vehicles. But I think they add a lot of charm. I think they're really fun. I like the extra scope and scale that the story presents. It's the least bad story of the original 3 because it actually is a story. Even though the presentation's a bit scaled back from Crash 2. Crash 2's whole element of being tricked by Cortex. It'd be better if it wasn't so obvious to the player that you were being tricked. Crash 3 doesn't pretend to have a grander story, and it does cut the presentation down, but it kind of makes up for it by having, like, those super animated faces, which make great memes. Introduced Dingodile, who's one of my favorite characters in the franchise. For whatever reason, I don't know, Dingo Crocodile, it's a cool Australian Dingo Crocodile, well, they're all Australian. He's pretty rad. I like him. I love his boss music. I just really like the theming as well. I'm not a big fan of the medieval levels, but I like the dinosaur prehistoric levels. I love the Arabian levels. The Egyptian themed levels are pretty cool. The future levels, maybe not as much in terms of theming as Crash 2, but I do really enjoy Crash 3's levels. I think it's the easiest of the 3, but not easy so much that it's like a cakewalk. Crash 2 is a little bit harder than I think I'm comfortable with for the kind of game that it is. Crash 3, I think, is just a nice, breezy playthrough. And the time trials, you know, were just a fantastic addition to really expand the gameplay, really teach you how to play the game. And I'm glad they were added into the Insane Trilogy for 1 and 2. I think they're just a brilliant way to expand the game. Make the gems more valuable, give you bonus levels for completing quests, a lot better than the secret exits from Crash 2. A lot better than the gems and the collectibles in Crash 1, by the way. I didn't even talk about Crash 1, how if you don't beat the level without dying, or if you beat the level without dying, you have the chance to get a gem, but if you die, you don't get the gem, and that's just a real pain in the keister, man. that is miserable if you're a child. I never beat Crash 1 as a kid. I beat Crash 3 first, then I beat Crash 2, then I beat Crash 1. I had all three of them. As a kid, I always preferred Crash 3. Crash 2, yeah, I think this order is pretty consistent for my whole life. I replay the games often enough. I replay Crash 3 like maybe once every other year. A lot more now that I have the Insane Trilogy on Switch and on Xbox. I definitely get around with that. Alright, now moving on to the next one. Crash Team Racing. Maybe I should talk about the games before I place them. Crash Team Racing. This one's going to be really tough, not because I have anything negative to say about it. I love the original Crash Team Racing. I think it's a phenomenal game. I think they did a fantastic job replicating the feel of like a Mario Kart with the open world adventure of like Diddy Kong Racing. Alright, so Crash Team Racing, I have a really... I really do enjoy the game. It's gonna be hard to sort of exactly assess my opinion on Crash Team Racing, not because I don't love it, as I said I do. More so because of how much I really like its remake, and how much it almost antiquates the original a little bit. Which isn't to say the original is not still good. If the remake never existed, Crash Team Racing would still probably be my top racing game. I just like the way it plays. I like the mechanics to it. It is a racing game for the single player. It really combines the best of the controls of Mario Kart 64 with the best of exploration and the open world single player adventure of Diddy Kong Racing. It's a perfect hodgepodge of the two, especially with the inspiration and the sort of design of the Crash characters feeling very akin to Donkey Kong. The music, I should probably say the music in all these games so far slaps so hard. I can't really pick one particular soundtrack that I love. Crash Team Racing also has another really good one as well. I just like the way the game looks, I like the visuals. Crash Team Racing has a phenomenal sense of physics and momentum. The way that you utilize the drifting feels so natural. It really does reward you for playing well. I don't feel like Mario Kart has ever really kept up with Crash in terms of how the gameplay feels when it comes to the racing games. Diddy Kong is a very different beast entirely, so for me this is just the go-to. Yeah, I like the story, well, I mean, the story itself's whatever, but the story mode has been really fun. It's, for me, the definitive kart racing game. And because of that, I am going to struggle to get my mouse. And we are going to pop that boy in S tier as well. Now, you've been hearing a lot of praise. You're probably wondering, when's he going to start getting negative? We're here, guys. It's Crash Bash time. Crash Bash is a game I grew up with. It's a game I play a lot. It's a game that I like to play with people. Crash Bash is a bad video game. Crash Bash, if I didn't grow up with it and it didn't have the Crash Bandicoot logo, the Crash Bandicoot branding on it, I would never want to play it again. It's not a good game. It is a party game with none of the game. You're just playing minigames, but they're not even good minigames. There's like 5 or 6 different minigames that get recycled 4 different ways. And the requirements for beating the game are so obnoxious. In order to progress in the campaign, you have to not only win the minigame 3 times to get the trophy, but you also are required to get gems and crystals. And in order to get gems and crystals, what you need to do is you need to freaking do even harder challenges or do specific variations of those challenges. So the one version of the minigame, let's say you're playing the first one, the first box throwing, or the first like battle royale environment one where you're throwing the boxes in the jungle. You can do that a minimum of 9 times. 3 wins on gold, 3 wins on for the gem, and 3 wins for the crystal, just to get everything in that level. I think there's relics too. You need to get all that crap. And it's not like optional like the other Crash games. You need to get a bunch of that stuff or else the game will not let you continue. And also, you can't even play these minigames outside of party mode unless you unlock them in the single player. If you did not unlock them in the... Ah, god damn it. This mouse has like buttons on the side. If you didn't unlock them in the single player, you do not get to play those minigames. Which is a real pain in the ass. And of course, the story's dumb as well. Even dumber than the other ones. Why the hell is Embryo a villain, but Tiny Tiger and Dingodile are heroes? It's trash. There's some good music in there. I like the way the game looks. It plays okay. I'm really gonna struggle between if I put this in C or D tier. I think I'm gonna put it in C. It could go below D. It depends how I feel about the other games. But it's not a good game, and I think it's only getting a C because of that nostalgia I have. If I actually played this for the first time as an adult, it deserves a D. Alright, now... I don't actually remember which one came out first, so I'm just gonna go with the console games first. Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex. I have kind of warmed up to this game over the years. I don't know why. I don't think it's a great game, but I also think maybe it's just the fact that compared to other weird games that jumped to this console generation and other franchises deviating so much, especially when I look at stuff like Sonic and Mario and a lot of other franchises I was into that changed so much when they went to this console generation. Sorry. That Crash just having a really basic by-the-numbers game that plays okay, it has issues. Maybe that's okay. You know, it's a very derivative retelling, you know, redo of like Crash 3. It's not creative, it's not innovative, it doesn't look good, it looks ugly. It looks worse than the games on the PS1. As a kid, I could tell something was off about this game because even though it was on the GameCube, my main console, I barely played Crash Wrath of Cortex after like my first playthrough. I almost always exclusively played the original trilogy and just never wanted to play Wrath of Cortex because I knew something was off about it. I don't think this game is horrible. I think there's stuff to enjoy. I'm just not like a big fan of it. If you put a gun to my head and told me to play it, yeah, sure, I'd play it. I wouldn't object to it. It's certainly going to be higher up than other games on here, but I feel like B is too generous. I'm really starting to wonder if I put Crash Bash too high. I'm gonna put Wrath of Cortex above Crash Bash. Really depends where I put the rest of these games, because I feel like some of these games are gonna have to be lower than D. Alright, what was next? Oh yeah, also this is in here. So here's a weird one. I own 3 copies of Crash Nitro Kart, and I've never played it once in my life. I'm going to talk a little bit about Nitro Kart when I get to Crash Team Racing Nitro Field, but I'm very fascinated to play this game because I've heard very odd things about its mechanics changing from Crash Team Racing. But since I haven't played it, I can't really say anything about that. I'm just gonna have to go based on what I know. So definitely something I want to check out, but I don't have any first-hand experience with this one, despite owning it. I've owned it my entire life. Well, as long as the game's been out. I've owned the game since it came out. I don't know why. I think I just didn't like the cover or something. I don't know, I just got a vibe about it. I think maybe Crash Wrath of Cortex really kind of put me off of playing Crash on non-PlayStation consoles. I don't know, maybe having a Crash game on the GameCube was like, alright, something's not going to be right about this thing. You know, it's not going to be as good as the originals. So maybe I just never wanted to play it because Crash Team Racing was good enough. And I just got vibes about it. So, but I'm definitely willing to give it another shot. Now I say that, oh, I didn't want to play a Crash game if it wasn't on the original console. But I played the hell out of Crash the Huge Adventure. This game's good. It is really good. It is basically Crash 2 if you remade it on the Game Boy Advance, with some Crash 3 thrown in there. I think Crash, you know, translates really well to 2D, considering it's basically already a 2D game, just in the third dimension. The game looks good. The music's pretty good. The remixes from Crash 2 are really good. I think this game, you know, it has some issues, the screen crunch, and all that. But I think overall this game is, like, really, really good. It's very underrated. It's not really necessary to play nowadays, considering we have games like, you know, we have games like Crash, you know, we have Crash on Switch. What's the point of playing GBA Crash when we can already play the full games portably? Do I put it, I know I'm gonna put it below Crash 2. Do I want to put it above Crash 1? If I had to pick, if someone was offering me, would I rather play Crash 1 or Crash the Huge Adventure? I think I'd rather play Crash the Huge Adventure. Do I think it's as good as Crash 2? Or do I think it's on par with Crash 1? I'm gonna put it in B right now, but it could move up to A. But yeah, I think I'd more, at least for fully playing the game, I'd rather do a playthrough of the Huge Adventure. But it's honestly really close. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it in B, because I think that the gap's not that huge between the two of them. And also, I don't want it to seem like I'm dunking on Crash 1, because I do really like Crash 1. Before I move on to Twinsanity, oh yeah, I don't know what the hell, there's like 3 Twinsanities on here. I don't know. Anyway, before I move on to that, let's go over Crash Entrance. Entrance isn't bad, but it does have more problems. I don't really like playing it. Yeah, now I'm starting to wonder if I did these tiers all weird. Well, I'm gonna put it right here. I just don't know if I'm gonna shift everything around a little. Crash Entrance, it takes the formula of the original. I do want to stress, I guess on a game level, Entranced isn't as bad as Wrath of Cortex, but it just leaves me very whelmed and disappointed. They did a lot of weird mechanical changes. The game has this weird, gross art style to it. A lot of the cutscenes just look gross. I don't know. It's one of the games where it gives you the heebie-jeebies, you know? has this weird rocket jump, he has this weird run dash thing, which are basically overwrite your slide button, and it kind of just fucks with the whole game. Again, I don't like how the level design's structured, and I think this game goes crazier with having huge leaps in distance that you have to do because of the new power-ups that they introduced. So, yeah, I'm not too... I don't think it's bad. If you like Entrance, you know, more power to you. I do not like it anywhere near as much as Huge Adventure, and I probably would... I would rather play Wrath of Cortex. I mean, technically I'd rather play Crash Bash than play Entranced, but I think that's that'd be disrespectful to Entranced to put it below Crash Bash. Crash Bash just sucks. Crash Bash is not a good video game. It is a commercial product made to sell to children. Moving on from that, alright. Let's go into... You know, fuck it, let's just finish off the GBA trilogy. Crash Purple gets Crash Purple tier. Do I even need to explain Crash Purple? It's a Crash Bandicoot game where you drive tractors and throw Molotov cocktails at Spyro the Dragon. It's bad. It's not even a video game. I think Eminem's World for GBA has more fucking depth. Eminem's Party for GBA, I think it's called, has more depth than, freaking Crash Purple. Crash Purple is a fundamentally bad video game on every conceivable level. Don't play it. It's not even worth it for the memes. Just watch the cutscenes, but the cutscenes aren't even that funny. Alright, moving on. Crash to Insanity. I have not actually played through Twin Sanity to completion. I've gotten very far many times, and I think that is something I do need to keep into account. I'm gonna... Alright, you know what? I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna put it below Crash 1 and put it above Wrath of Cortex, because I think it belongs in a good tier. But I don't think it deserves to go much higher for a couple reasons. The game's very buggy. It's been talked about all the time how unfinished the game is. I think the game is really funny. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm starting to a lot, my apologies. I had a lot of fun playing the game. I think the game controls pretty well. It's really weird. It's like this abstract... It's kind of like Jak and Daxter, almost. It kind of takes the Jak and Daxter approach to having semi-open level design. Yeah, overall, I think it's fun. I think the gameplay is fun enough. I think the story is really good. The acapella soundtrack is very unique. Nothing like the rest of the franchise. I don't know if it was really the best thing for the franchise, as they started going more into that comedic angle afterwards, but I think in isolation, Twin Sanity was a good blueprint, and I think if the game had performed better, the franchise could have been in a better state. It very much reminds me of a Sonic Unleashed or a Sonic Lost World style situation, where I think if that game had done better and come out a little bit more complete to people's liking, that could have been a huge new start for the franchise. Twin Sanity could have been the blueprint for later Crash games to go on, but they wanted to go and do some weird abstract stuff with the franchise. Fish. Yeah. Twin Sanity is cool. It's not great, but I enjoy it enough. I would rather play a more traditional Crash like Huge Adventure or Crash Bandicoot 1, but I think the game has enough merits to deserve its spot there. A game that does not deserve that many accolades, Crash Tag Team Racing. I'm gonna pop that one right at the bottom. The overworld maps kind of sucks. You know, I probably should put something in D tier. Probably should put these in D tier, honestly. Let's put these in D tier. Like, to be clear, I don't really hate any of these games. There's not really a Crash Bandicoot game that's this bad. Well, except for Crash Purple. But yeah, Crash Bash is just not a good game. I don't really even like tag team racing that much, but I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. Story is bad, stupid, characters are obnoxious as hell. Actually, you know what? No, I'm putting tag team racing in its own bottom tier, basically. I don't like the way the cars drive. The tag mechanic completely screws balancing for races. The overworld exploration's annoying. This is the game where it has a fart loading screen, and it's like, now we're just going into, like, baby comedy. So yeah, out of all the Crash games, tag team racing's probably the one I'm least interested to ever go back to. Again, not counting Crash Purple. Alright. So after all that, we go on to a bit of an interesting point with the Crash Bandicoot franchise. We go into Crash of the Titans. I have played a good chunk of Crash of the Titans 1. Where would I put this? I don't like it, but I also don't dislike it that much. I'm not opposed to it. It's just really generic. It's really mediocre. If you played a God of War beat-em-up clone, honestly, it kind of feels like it's a predecessor to a Skylanders style deal. That and Legend of Spyro feel like they were cooking Skylanders for a good couple years and used Crash and Spyro as sort of guinea pigs to get people used to these franchises having weird beat-em-up combat room sections. So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's better than Crash Bash. I don't know if I want to give it much more credit than that. I mean, I'd rather play Crash Bash than Crash of the Titans. Like, I really want to emphasize, Crash of the Titans is not a bad game. I just personally do not care for it. This was long after Crash Bandicoot became a disappointing franchise, after the PS2 era. So at this point, I didn't even care, really. I bought it, I played it for a couple hours. I was pretty checked out by that point. So I don't have any personal grudge to it, I just don't care. So yeah, it's better than Crash Bash. I'd rather play Crash Bash. Sorry, personal bias has got to come in here. I'm going to put Crash Bash over it. Actually, look, if I'm going to put personal bias in, I'm put entranced underneath it. So yeah. But I'm keeping these two all in D and C tier because they're not terrible games. Tag team racing is a fundamentally not good game. It's not irredeemable, but yeah, Crash of the Titans, it's charming enough. But it's just not for me. Not my Crash. I have not played Mind Over Mutant for that same reason. I was not interested, and from what I've seen, I probably would put it in D tier. I don't like the fact that it goes to like a 2D platforming, open world, collectathon variety. That just seems stupid to me. That's not very interesting. Alright, now before we get on to the next-gen HD era, I'm going to take a side detour, despite the fact this game came out after all of them. I'm going to talk about Crash on the Run. I'm put that right here in C tier. I think it's fun. It was fun. I played it for a good couple weeks or so, but eventually the grind just took me out of it. I couldn't keep playing it. It was boring after a while. I did enjoy the cool skins, the costumes. I think the game played fine. I think it was just all you were doing by playing the game was grinding. There was no other objective besides grinding for resources, and that just gets boring. Like, you're playing the game to move on to new levels so you can use those levels to grind. And that's the whole point, it's just grinding. There's no other objectives. There's no, like, main missions. There's the boss battles, but those are so infrequent and you can only really do them the one time. It's like, you're grinding for nothing. But I'd rather play that than play Crash Bash, so I'll put that there. Now we get on to the remakes. Crash Bandicoot, the Insane Trilogy. You know, let's bring that boy here. Let's slap that boy right in A tier. I think it is the definitive version of Crash 1, by far. It improves so much about it. The fact that you can save whenever, the fact that you can... I believe they fixed it so that you can die and get gems, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they didn't have that. They did make it so that color gems you have to beat without dying, which admittedly are the hardest levels in the game by sheer coincidence, so that's still annoying. But that's a major improvement right there. The analog controls are much better. Crash 1 has a lot more personality. I really feel like Crash 1's the one they put the most love into, and that's the one that needed it the most, so I'm very happy about that. They brought back Stormy Ascent, that game that level was so hard they cut it from the original. Crash 2 is about on par with the original. Honestly, it doesn't matter which version of that game you play, they're both fine. I will admit Crash 3 is a little worse on the Insane Trilogy than the original version. As I mentioned, the vehicles, they kind of messed them up. Some of the instrumentation and some of the music is honestly a bit worse in 3 than the rest of them. Some of the cutscenes just don't look as nice in 3. It really feels like 3, despite being the biggest game, kind of feels like the one they rushed out. I don't think it's like an incomplete product. I just think it feels kind of rushed. So overall, you're getting 3 really good games. I do think, yeah, I think it's the superior version of 1, a little bit inferior version of 3, and on par with 2, so it makes sense to be in the middle here. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. I am this close to putting it as my number 1. I think I've played it so much over the late years. It is so good. They took the physics of the original and fine-tuned them perfectly. And they added all the Nitro Kart tracks and made them better by getting rid of the anti-gravity stuff. They took the boosting from Nitro Kart, and that honestly feels amazing with the blue fire acceleration. That is so good. I love it. The game looks gorgeous, it has online play, it has new DLC characters. Oh my god, it's really tough. I don't know. Do I pick my original baby or do I pick my new baby? Yeah, you know what? I think that looks better. I'll move CTR down to A tier. Still fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I think the remakes have really antiquated these games. I still think I'd rather play CTR over Crash 2, but they're both fantastic. But yeah, CTR Nitro Fueled, that's the greatest kart racing game ever invented. It is so good. I'm genuinely... before this video's over, I might even still go back and switch them back over. Switch between 3 and CTR. Whew. And now to get to the final one. Crash 4. It's about time. It's really the perfect one to end it on. It's about time. So Crash 4, I'm very conflicted on. I played a couple worlds of Crash 4. Let me say right off the bat, I do not like the writing in the game at all. It's clearly written by the Spyro writers, and I hate the writing in Spyro. I've been very critical of the story in the Crash franchise so far. But the original trilogy, I think, was pretty good for what it was. I said it was stupid, and it kind of is, but it's also, it takes itself seriously enough. This game feels like it takes itself too seriously, but also just has like this very sarcastic meta vibe to itself, which I don't really vibe with. Tawna becoming Spider-Gwen was weird. Yeah, I don't know. Writing's really cringe. I like the way the game looks. It's a solid art style for Crash. I think this works. The physics in the game were good, for the most part. Didn't feel as good as the original trilogy, but it was fine. Crash was maybe a little heavy. I think my biggest issues are I don't like the gimmicks of the masks. I think they're too obnoxious to utilize. And they replace vehicles, but they're not as fun as vehicles. Some people will praise them, saying, oh man, it's incorporating gimmicks without changing the core gameplay, but it's like, I don't know. When you'd rather just have, I don't know, I'd rather just have like entirely dedicated levels to gimmicks. Especially for how long the levels go on in Crash 4. And here's where we get to the big complaint. Crash 4 completion is such a pain in the ass. I have played so many levels and not been able to get all the boxes because of them hiding them in the most obscure fucking places. And the perfect relics and all that stuff is a real pain in the ass. It's really not fun. It sucks some of the fun out of it. But I do think the game is overall really good. I think it's a good video game. I just don't agree with the philosophies behind its design. It's very antithetical to the core of Crash Bandicoot. It conditions you not to go for 100% completion every time you play a level. And it's like, that's just not what Crash is. I love 100%ing the older Crash games because that's what they're designed to be, and you can do that really easily. Even Crash, The Wrath of Cortex is designed like that. Crash 4 is really not designed for you to be doing it. It wants you to come back and replay the levels. It wants you to come back later and practice it. It wants you... Yeah, it asks so much of you, and, you know, there's this, like, in Crash 2 and Crash 3, I think one level each that has a box that's hidden off screen, but, like, almost every other level, it feels like that's happening in Crash 4, and that's just disrespectful. The inverted levels, whatever. And I wasn't even that sold on the soundtrack. I thought it was pretty mid. Y'all gonna hate me for this one. Ooh, that one's gonna piss people off. I think this is what I want it to be. Let me look it over. Obviously, I don't think anyone was surprised that the original trilogy was gonna come out, you know, so high up. The remakes were really, really good. They did an incredible job bringing those classics back to modern ages, and give them all the credit. Vicarious Visions, you know, Beanox, they hit it out of the park. I wish we had a chance at another Crash game. I know that Wumpa League's happening, but if they make a new Crash after Crash 4, I really hope they learn some of the... take more from the originals. I really just... Look, I'm not saying you need to make a new Crash game, be like the old games verbatim, but I feel like in trying to not do that, Crash 4 took too much away from the core philosophy of the original. Originals are simple, straightforward, get in, get out, fun adventures. Crash 4 just feels a little mean. Feels a little mean to its player base. If you're just playing to get to the end of the game, yeah, it's fine. But if you're trying to play it like a Crash game, it's just gonna make you feel like crap. Yeah, so everything B and up, I will gladly play any day. C tier, I don't object to them. They're just not, they're games I have a lot of issues with. Tag team racing, and what do I gotta say about Crash Purple? So yeah, that's how I feel about the Crash Bandicoot franchise. Let me know what you guys think about Crash. Tell me how wrong I am for putting Crash 4 below the Wrath of Cortex. Slap me in the face, why don't you? Tell me, why did you play Crash Boom Bang? It's the best one. Yeah, but yeah, we will definitely be back throughout the year. Joe will be back, and we will make sure to see you guys back at the table for our next video, our next podcast, and our next tier list, because we are going to be doing plenty of these throughout the year. Let us know what you want us to do tier lists on. Let us know what you want to do us to do more of these kinds of videos on, and we will do them. But yeah, that's going to be it from here. Have a good one, everybody.